On November 29, 1981, the body of Natalie Wood, a beloved Hollywood icon, was found floating in the cold waters off Catalina Island. Dressed in a flannel nightgown, a down jacket, and wool socks, it seemed odd that she would venture out for a midnight swim. This mysterious death sent shockwaves through the entertainment world, shaking the public perception of the glamorous actress known for Rebel Without a Cause, West Side Story, and Miracle on 34th Street. To the outside world, Natalie had everything: beauty, fame, and a picture-perfect marriage to actor Robert Wagner. However, the truth behind her death soon started to unravel, revealing a story far more complex than a tragic accident. As new witnesses came forward and fresh evidence emerged, it became clear that what happened that night on the yacht, Splendor, was far from simple. The last night. Aboard the Splendor, the events leading up to Natalie Wood's tragic end began when she, Robert Wagner, Christopher Walken, and the yacht's captain, Dennis Davern, embarked on a Thanksgiving weekend trip aboard the yacht Splendor. The group left Marina del Rey on November 27, 1981, and anchored near Avalon, despite rough weather with high waves and cold winds. Later that evening, Wagner decided to move the yacht to a more secluded spot called Two Harbors, claiming it was for privacy. After dining at the island's only restaurant, Doug's Harbor Reef, the group returned to the yacht visibly intoxicated, laughing and drinking heavily. A cry for help that went unanswered. Around midnight, a woman aboard a nearby boat, Marilyn Wayne, heard frantic cries from the darkness of the ocean. "Help me! Someone please help me! I'm drowning!" The screams continued for 15 minutes, only to be followed by a man's voice calmly saying, "Okay, honey." Then, complete silence. Despite the cries for help, no immediate action was taken. It wasn't until 4 hours later, at 3:30 a.m., that anyone called the Coast Guard. When the rescue boat finally arrived at 5:11 a.m., it was too late. Natalie's body was found floating a mile from the yacht, while the dinghy, still tied up and unused, lay beached nearby. Robert Wagner claimed she must have gone out to secure the dinghy and slipped, but those who knew Natalie better couldn't believe it. Natalie Wood, from child star to Hollywood icon. Natalie Wood's life began long before that fateful night. Born Natalia Nikolna Zacharino on July 20, 1938, in San Francisco to Russian immigrant parents, Natalie was thrust into the limelight at the age of 4. Discovered by a film crew, she was soon given small roles that set her on the path to stardom. By 1946, she had starred in Tomorrow is Forever, and by age 9, she was winning hearts in Miracle on 34th Street. Despite her young success, her childhood was far from ideal. Her mother, Maria, was determined to see her daughter succeed and pushed Natalie relentlessly to perform. The pressure was immense, and at just 9 years old, Natalie was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. Her mother's obsession with perfection left little room for a normal childhood, a life of fame and heartbreak. As Natalie transitioned from a child star to an adult actress, her fame only grew. By 1955, she starred alongside James Dean in Rebel Without a Cause, earning an Oscar nomination and solidifying her place in Hollywood. However, her rise to stardom came at a high personal cost. During the filming of Rebel Without a Cause, Natalie began a complicated relationship with director Nicholas Ray, a man nearly 3 times her age. What the tabloids labeled as romance, Natalie later described as painful confusion. This was her first introduction to the darker side of Hollywood, where actresses were often seen as commodities to be used and controlled, rather than as individuals with agency and control over their careers. It was a harsh lesson that would echo throughout her life. The marriage to Robert Wagner, a fairy tale turned sour. Natalie's fairy tale marriage to actor Robert Wagner was one of Hollywood's most publicized relationships. As a young girl, Natalie had pointed to Wagner's photo and said she would marry him one day. In 1957, that dream came true when they wed. They quickly became one of Hollywood's most glamorous couples, adored by fans and the media alike. However, behind the facade, cracks began to show. Wagner's career struggled to match Natalie's success, leading to feelings of jealousy. Rumors spread that Natalie had caught Wagner in a compromising situation with another man, though it was never confirmed. In 1962, the couple divorced. Despite the separation, Natalie's love for Wagner remained strong, and they eventually reconciled in the 1970s, remarrying in 1972. However, old habits and tensions resurfaced, including Wagner's jealousy and Natalie's desire for independence. Natalie's struggles and the return of Robert Wagner. After a second failed marriage to British producer Richard Gregson, Natalie and Wagner found their way back to each other in the early 1970s. In 1972, they remarried, and Natalie became a mother again. However, despite their reunion, their relationship remained fraught with tension. By the late 1970s, Natalie worked less, focusing more on her family. But when the opportunity to work on the film Brainstorm came up in 1981, she was excited to be back on set, particularly because of her chemistry with co-star Christopher Walken. This sparked jealousy in Wagner, who didn't approve of the closeness between Natalie and Walken. The underlying issues in their marriage, combined with Wagner's jealousy, created a volatile environment that would ultimately play a role in the tragedy that occurred that Thanksgiving weekend: the investigation into Natalie Wood's death. For decades, the official story surrounding Natalie Wood's death remained unchanged. It was a tragic accident. However, those who knew her, especially her sister Lana Wood, were never satisfied with the explanation. Lana, in particular, kept pushing for a more thorough investigation, questioning the details surrounding Natalie's death. Natalie's lifelong fear of dark water, her refusal to go into the ocean alone, and the unexplained events that night led Lana to believe that something more sinister had occurred. In 2000, Captain Dennis Davern, who had been aboard the yacht that night, broke his silence. In an interview, he revealed that Wagner had been extremely jealous and angry at Walken that evening, culminating in a violent argument. He also claimed Wagner had prevented him from calling for help when Natalie went missing. New witnesses and the reopening of the case. Captain Davern's claims were initially dismissed, but in 2009, he published a book detailing his account of the events, which led to renewed interest in the case. In 2011, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department officially reopened the investigation, citing new information and inconsistencies in the original witness statements. The following year, the coroner's office amended Natalie's death certificate, changing the cause of death from accidental drowning to drowning and other undetermined factors. The report noted bruises on her body that suggested she had been assaulted. In 2018, after years of reinvestigation, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department publicly declared Natalie's death suspicious and named Robert Wagner a person of interest. Despite this, Wagner refused to cooperate with authorities, and to this day, the case remains unsolved. The ongoing mystery. Despite numerous attempts to find the truth, Natalie Wood's death continues to be shrouded in mystery. New witnesses continue to come forward, adding pieces to the puzzle. Some recall seeing lights flickering on the yacht that night, suggesting movement on board, even after Wagner claimed everyone had gone to bed. Others remember hearing the cries for help, followed by Wagner's calm response. The 4-hour delay in calling for help remains one of the most suspicious aspects of the case, as survival in cold water is limited to minutes, not hours. As the investigation continues, the truth behind Natalie's death remains elusive, but the questions persist. The final truth and the lasting legacy of Natalie Wood. Natalie Wood's tragic death is a reminder of the darker side of Hollywood, where fame and success often come at a steep price. Beneath her glamorous image, Natalie carried emotional scars that were never fully understood. From her childhood under the intense pressure of her mother's ambitions to her troubled relationships with powerful men, Natalie's life was filled with manipulation, control, and fear. Her death, marked by unanswered questions, is the culmination of a lifetime spent struggling to maintain control over her own narrative. To this day, her story serves as both a cautionary tale and a reminder of the cost of silence in the face of abuse. What happened that night on the yacht? Splendor may never be fully understood, but Natalie Wood's legacy as one of Hollywood's brightest stars remains undeniable.